So I messaged John Nicholson. Well, I messaged him twice through two different mediums, but I messaged John Nicholson mainly because I actually liked and thought his select committee with Ofcom was good because he is actually challenging Rees-Mogg. Although it's very sketchy because this guy, his career is in broadcasting and publishing, right? Now, he was actually critiquing Ofcom, which was a good thing, right? Over very intricate and detailed, clever things about Rees-Mogg. So he is actually opposed to Mogg. It would lead us all to believe that it was opposed to Mogg. Professor Tim Wilson's video coverage of the matter has been outstanding. But the fact is the whole thing just a charade from Nicholson and Mogg and the whole of Parliament? Because the way it's going with Russell Brand and everything at the moment, I am suspicious that, they've pulled Brand's funding. There's a lot of funding being pulled from GoFundMe, particularly the Grey Zone, that Max Blumenthal. Lots of other groups are having funding pulled. They've put Brand on pulled funding, and now some of the MPs, like that Dame whatever from the Department of Culture, Media, Sport, are threatening everyone. All of the, let's call it opposition, all of the legitimate opposition now to what is being pushed on us from the main governments, when we have a right to oppose the governments, seems to be being shut down, mainly in funding. They won't actually give Robert F. Kennedy Jr. funding for his protection, right? So therefore he's got to pay for it out of his own money. They're trying to shut money off because if you haven't got any money, you can't pay for anything. I've got a petition channel. It is there to publicise the petition and collect signatures and promo. YouTube have taken it down. It's all my evidence. They've stolen my video evidence from me. I can't access it or log in. Russell Brand's channel, apparently he couldn't upload videos at one point, but he's just had his money pulled, yet now he's uploading videos again, and his channel's still there, right? Russell Brand is not actually doing a petition. It's standard journalism, right? He's not actually got a specific case. I'm going on to the subject of cases now because it's important. It clearly states in the Town and Country Planning Act, right? What is an advertisement? An advertisement is anything that is promoting anything, right? It doesn't have to be paid for to be an advert. You don't have to be paying for it. It can be free. But it's through any medium that promotes it, whether it's printing flyers yourself and you delivering them, and it's got to be sent. Any and all mediums, basically. Now, the First Amendment of America adds to free speech. We have got free speech for democratic process. All people engage with it at any and all level, from the person who starts a petition, anyone who's involved in helping them, through to the MPs who debate it in Parliament. It is the entire proceedings which are protected to facilitate, or you won't be able to operate. It's operational. In the 1700s, when they adopted our right to petition and what that means, they extended the speech to cover the press. Otherwise, you can't air or promote anything. And the newspapers are privately owned. But it also includes anything, because otherwise, even if you didn't put it in the newspaper, if you're doing it local and you wanted to print your own leaflets and get them delivered, whether yourself or voluntarily, how do you get them printed? You've got to be able to get them printed. What if the printer says, I'm not going to print them, even if they're for you? What if he doesn't agree with your cause and refuses business? Right? I mean, even if you deliver them yourself, it doesn't matter. You have to get them printed, and then what happens if you wanted paper? And what happens if they refuse to sell you even blank paper? Right? It's channeling through the whole thing, or you just can't do it. It's like putting something over your mouth, right? that First Amendment, it's not really about the freedom of the press is not like the Sun or the Mirror having the freedom to put stories and do what they want. That's complete and total a wrong interpretation. The First Amendment is the constitution of the country, the running and functioning of the country, an engagement of we the people. So what are the cupboards and doors and the workings of government? What are the functions? They call it the cabinet in England because the cabinet is like where all the papers go. It opens and closes. It's a functioning machine. It's not in the we the people, the First Amendment of America. Why would it start talking about private companies or private business owners? A butcher, baker, candlestick maker. That's got nothing to do with the constitution of a country, how it operates. To enable it to work. The First Amendment is the right of us to bring cases to the government and speak about it and air it through the press, or else you can't function a case. It is. And in English law, we do have the same, and it is actually codified into modern legislation as well. The Town and Country Planning Act, it covers all advertisements and representations, because it's a legal representation, defines them, and including all on digital and illuminated devices, not just in print. Not just in print in a newspaper. It clearly and explicitly defines adverts, it doesn't matter whether it's paid for or not, on illuminated devices, which I have got holding in my hand now, which I am talking into. Right? So it is the device. It is YouTube, and it is Facebook, and it is Twitter. It's in modern law. And, you know, even on the website, and when it's for political purposes, through the use of an enactment for those advertisements, it's class E and F. And there's a legal requirement. The council use this in function of the council. When there's a roadworks, they have to publish notices in certain newspapers or in a major press. John Nicholson should know this. It must be published. The newspaper is private, but it can't say to the council, we're not publishing notification of roadworks. That is what the First Amendment of America is, the freedom of press. It is not Nicola Brooks and the Sun having some we the people right to publish ridiculous stories about pumpernickel. It has got absolutely nothing to do with newspaper editors having a right to publish stupid cartoon stories. It's got nothing to do with that. The First Amendment of America is saying out and required democratic function of the nation. And that's what it is, petition with free speech with the press, or else you can't function. And it's not just ministers in government while they're operating. It's we the people. How do you submit cases? If you didn't have freedom of press, you couldn't print something on your printer and you couldn't send it through Royal Mail to a court to submit a case because they'd all say we're not delivering it, or we're not, or, you know, what happens if it's an Apple printer and it's, you know, now they're taking over his devices, and what if Apple say, oh, you know, this, you know, printer will not print? Telling your printer, oh, I'm not printing that. Well, it's my own printer. You know, we've got apps on his phones in his houses. Now they're saying you can't do things on your own app, on your own phone, in your own house. You know? We have got a legal right on YouTube, and it even says, directions from Parliament. They publish directions on the Petitions Committee website. It says, share. They're giving a published direction. Share this petition on Twitter, Facebook, email, and on YouTube. That's a direction from Parliament. It means that Microsoft cannot say to you, I'm not delivering those emails. It includes YouTube as well. It's a short list of examples. Now, YouTube are breaking the law. This doesn't actually directly apply to Russell Brand, but if he wanted to start doing casework and getting people to support it, he could do, but he's sticking with normal journalism. Some of us have got open, ongoing campaigns. And Paul Groves at YouTube is denying us the right. Neil Mohan at YouTube is breaking the law in America and England. This is the Petition Committee's job and the Advertising Standards Agency. We pay for these organisations. We're paying for it in tax. It's an advert. It's regulated. That means there are regulations for adverts, right? There are regulations for adverts. And when you've got regulations, that means there's some regulations for this and some regulations for that. Now, the regulations say that for political material, they can't be prosecuted. So that means the Advertising Standards Agency aren't going to take legal action against those political materials. That's why they don't usually govern it. But that's only one aspect of governance. Advertising Standards Agency govern adverts. Now, what governs a Class F advert? Read it and it tells you what the governance is. What is the requirement? There's no requirement to prosecute. In fact, you can't prosecute. So one of the governance functions is there won't be any prosecutions. So Advertising Standards Agency don't prosecute. But what are the other governance of those adverts? Class F has a legal requirement to be published through the use of an enactment to serve a function. And are there any directions from Parliament? Yes, they're published on the petitions. Share this petition, which includes promoting it. You can have your own promo material. The Tories make up their own advertisements for their campaigns. When they're running for election, they design their own adverts as they fancy, how they want them, whatever pictures and words they want to promote their parties and to promote their candidates. It's protected on YouTube and on other platforms and in the post and in the mail and going into a shop to even get it printed out, or you wouldn't even be able to do it or speak. No, the Advertising Standards Agency actually have a requirement to govern political adverts, means that they shan't be prosecuted against, but they have a legal right to be published. There's a direction from Parliament. None of these ministers are actually doing their job. They're elected to represent us. And what they're doing is they get elected and then they're actually trying to block us and obstruct us, which is completely and totally wrong. There's no doubt about that. That law is clear, and it's nearly as bad as Max Hill, the Chief Crown Prosecutor, completely and totally blanking that act of law with Angela Ditchfield and using criminal damage charges against Angela Ditchfield, when what she did, painting walls, is governed by the statutory instruments of the Town and Country Planning Act. It governs painting on walls, advertising political campaigns. It's governed by Class C and E and F. So when you are looking at a case where someone has painted a wall, why is the Town and Country Planning Act and statutory instruments being completely blanked? Not even being brought up to talk about by Max Hill. Why is Angela Ditchfield being prosecuted under a Criminal Damage Act when that act doesn't govern painting walls with advertisements? Now, getting back onto the subject of Rees-Mogg, there is the Referendums Acts have got further rules and regulations over the publication of and broadcast of politics. And it clearly states Ofcom are basing their... What are Ofcom's rules based on? What are the regulations of Ofcom based on? Where do they get the... It's as if Ofcom have made the law up. Ofcom haven't made the law up. Their policy is based on law. They didn't just make it up from nowhere. what is Ofcom's policy from? What does it resonate? It is a briefing of what is lawful. And what tells you what is lawful is the legislation. Now, the problem is that there are other acts of law which I've cited and quoted, and those acts of law, like the Referendums Acts, it says that MPs cannot broadcast even outside of referendums or inside of referendums or elections, because there's a chance it will affect voters' opinion. It says that it doesn't matter whether it's within the voting period. It says also clearly outside of that period, clearly. And it also states that even if something isn't misleading people or leading them into an opinion or for voting, it says even if it's got a possible chance of, or even if it could, not if it does mislead them, or not if it is leading them or influencing them, even if it might be able to, if it might influence them or could, which doesn't mean to say that it is or did. So that is a very, very wide range of material. And then it clearly states, without any doubt at all, it clearly states that it sets out that it's not actually about whether or not a person, what type of program it is. It's got nothing to do with whether it's a news program and nothing to do with whether it is a entertainment program. It's all about the individual. It's about the individual person themselves. This person is an elected MP. That is their position and role. They're elected to represent us in Parliament. It governs elected MPs. And it covers them from presenting programmes inside or outside of election periods, and not even if something does affect the public's opinion, even if it may affect it, might affect it, or could affect it. So that is, it's far, far greater restrictions than simply what Ofcom have been calling up. And I was on the side of John Nicholson when he was criticising Rees-Mogg, but I'm starting to think that it's a ruse, because if they put Mogg on there and they have a little bit of a hoo-ha, and even if Mogg manages to get pulled off for the reasons that Ofcom raised, then there's these other reasons that are getting undermined and overlooked. And then if it manages to brush that under the carpet, then they've conned us. And if Rees-Mogg gets away with staying on there, then they've completely conned us. So I think it's a ruse, because of this. In this day and age of digital media and sport, the MPs now are seen as a hell of a lot of influence from the public, and they're going to become very, very obsolete, because, you know, who even watches Parliament debates anymore? People are ending up debating it themselves. MPs are desperately attempting to try have a voice. And the thing with GB News is they claim to invite everyone on from different fields of areas of discussion, like opinion. You know, they've got Neil Oliver, Rees-Mogg, you know, they've got Andrew Bridgen, Reform UK, Tice, all these different people they have on there, right? Now, what is Mogg doing on there anyway? Oh, we're having a wide opinion. Yes, but what's happening now is they're starting to shut people down and pull funding. Now, they got what I think this is the strategy. They wanted to get Mogg to come. I think Mogg is a model to convince everyone that they're allowed to be on there. If they succeed in selling it to the public and everyone believes them, right, then they get away with it. Once they establish that, which is illegal, right, because this proves it's illegal. Once that act proves it's illegal, Mogg shouldn't be on there. If they get away with Mogg being on there, then the next phase, right, is in order to have Mog on there, they had to invite other people on there. Like they had to invite, Reclaim Party, and they had to invite Neil Oliver on there. Then it makes it look like it's okay and you can do it. Oh, we're getting everyone on there, equal sides. But then what they're doing is they're doing this manoeuvre with Russell Brand, and they're trying to take him down and pull his funding. If they succeeded with that, then what they'll end up doing is taking people like Neil Oliver or Vobes and people like that off. In order to convince everyone that they can have Mog on there, they need to get everyone on there. So then they've got no opposition, right? It's a very devious and clever strategy, because currently, if they have Oliver on there and Bridgen and Reclaim and Tice, they're not arguing against Rees-Mogg. They're not going to argue against Rees-Mogg and say you can't be on there, because then they won't be able to be on there. So by putting Mogg on there and inviting them all there, it's pulling the wool over everyone's eyes to make everyone think that you can do it. Now, with this Nicholson stunt with Mogg, right, it doesn't really matter too much whether or not Mogg gets pulled off or not. Because even if they manage to get away with Mogg being on there, they've completely won. And then what they'll do is extract the opposition once they themselves have secured their position there. If on the downside if Mogg doesn't get away with being on there, the way that John Nicholson has sold it to everyone is that, well, yeah, okay, maybe Mogg shouldn't be on there, and he's vehemently fought against Mogg, but at the same time completely overlooked the rest of the legislation, which actually is a lot wider scope than just Mogg. Because it really says that because he is an MP, he shouldn't be on there at all. Doesn't matter what type of programme it is. So we're being played. We're being conned. It's a hustle. We're being hustled. Now, there's no doubt it's the modern age, it's the modern day, we've got digital devices and so what. It's what George Galloway says, MPs are becoming obsolete. Now, the Petitions Committee are not even helping us with our rights. They are regularly lying. They pretend to be stupid. Oh, I don't know what you're asking. We don't know what the petition's asking. We don't know what it says. Tosh, if 5 people have signed it, they're not retarded. What happens if I get 5 professors to sign my petition? Professor Tim Wilson, Professor Karen Bowie. What happens if I get 5 professors to sign a petition? And then the Petitions Committee are going to say to me, Martin Day MP, I don't know what you're asking. Well, 5 professors have signed it. They must know what I'm asking if the 5 professors have signed a petition. They're the highest level of academia you can get in the country. Why would they put their hand to a petition if they didn't understand what it was asking, right? So it's a con. They're trying to keep things out so they don't have to publish it on the Parliament site. And it doesn't matter whether they don't want to debate it or not. You've got the right to collect those signatures because it can be based solely on public opinion. You might be asking for something which is ridiculous, like the Monster Raving Loony Party have policies, yet it's a proper party. And your evidence might be flimsy. But it can be actioned on sheer volume of weight of people. If you get 3 million people behind you to sign something, it doesn't matter if you're asking for to make ice creams illegal, right? It's on the weight of what the people think, and the Petitions Committee don't want it on the Parliament website. They just don't want it on there, and then they're saying you can't attach evidence. Off-site evidence. You're trying the information. Who are you trying the information with? The public. It's a legal case, is a petition. It clearly is a legal case. It's set out in the Tumultuous Petition Act that it's a legal process. It's set out in Professor Karen Bowie's paper from Glasgow University that it's a legal action. You're trying the evidence with the jury who look at it and support it and then compel the MPs to debate it, whether they like it or not. And we're being hustled from that as well. Why is an American man Robert F. Kennedy Jr., why do I have to rely on an American presidential candidate to be the only possible saviour of mankind? Why is England, why are British MPs from England not on the side of the public or the people that are electing them? Where is our government? Why is our government now seeming to be a corporate entity that only wants us to soak up its talking buses, soak up its JCB beeps, beep, 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 soak up its aeroplane noises going over the top of us, soak up everything it says on TV, and just transform into programmable entities in Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse? Where they're trying to make us they don't want us to be free-thinking, educated creatures. You know, they don't even trust our intelligence to make our own opinions and judge for ourselves anything, you know? And I won't mind, but this is political rights. That I am paying tax every time I buy something. The Advertising Standards Agency is responsible for governance of adverts, and I don't care what its policy says. Its policy is being highly selective over what it cares to mention. The law is what governs England. Same with Ofcom or the Advertising Standards Agency. The law tells Ofcom what it should and shouldn't do and remove. The law tells Advertising Standards Agency what it should or should not do. Not their policy. And the person who's written the policy is desperately in need of filling the policy in blank and missing bits, glossing over certain areas or completely omitting them when they legally apply and they are responsible for governance. Now, the Advertising Standards Agency need to represent our political advertisements that have a legal requirement to be published when we want them to be, like a legal case asking for witnesses. We can use Twitter, we can use email, we can use Facebook. It doesn't exclude YouTube. It's published on the petition's website, and you can promote your petition however you wish. Like the Tories can choose to promote their campaigns however they wish. They've just had £5 million donated into the Tory war chest. You don't tell me they're not going to be using it for advertisements to advertise their campaigns. We've got issues. We're being hijacked by Mark Zuckerberg and Neil Mohan and Google, and the MPs are aiding and abetting them. Where are the MPs who are helping us? I wouldn't mind, but you know, Martin Day is meant to be independent or SNP, whatever. We don't have a political party for the people at the moment. There is no... Jerry Corbyn's not even really doing anything. Andrew Bridgen's saying that he can't do anything because he's like Billy No Mates and none of the MPs will even talk to him. Where is one MP who is actually acting for the public and not being misled and ill-advised by malicious Ministry of Justice people? Anyone with an A in English can read that law and know what it means. Anyone with an academic grade in England who understands the English language can understand what the Town and Country Planning Act says, what Class E and F are, and what is not allowed in publishing when they read the Referendums Acts as well.